Welcome to our second round table. Today's guest, we have Cathy that helped Attawapiskat, and we have Sasha that will be asking the first question.
Why did you decide to help Attawapiskat when you knew it would cost money and there was no road to Attawapiskat?
I heard about the struggles of Attawapiskat at the same time as everybody else did, and that was as a result of teen suicides on the reserve. So I wanted to know what it was that children thought that was the only way out. So I researched it and I learned why, and I felt strongly that something needed to be done. And so I started a shoebox campaign, and because I wanted to make a difference in a child's life, and I wanted them to know that people were thinking of them, that they weren't alone.
Thank you. How did you find the courage to start such a big project after your accident?
It was my saving grace, because I was having really bad headaches and I could barely get about, and so I had a lot of physical and emotional struggles with the concussion. And so what Attawapiskat did for me saved me. So in helping them, I saved me.
Was the project difficult to complete? Why and how long did it take?
The project had its challenges, and it's not something that I did on my own. I have some amazing staff, and I wasn't sure how my concussion was going to impact my ability to do the project. So I sat down with them and explained to them what it was that I wanted to do, and so if I ran into some problems, would they help me? And they all said yes, and they would they would drive around town. They would be picking up boxes and bring them to my home, and they did that for 3 months, and really cold weather, like when we had a snowstorm, it didn't matter. Rain or shine, they were out there and they helped. And then the local paper did a piece on the project, and so we ended up with lots of support, and so we were able to raise 200 shoe boxes for the kids.
How did the Cree react when you arrived with the supplies?
The Cree are very humble people, and given the how expensive it is on the reserve and the day-to-day struggles that they have, I believe that they've found them helpful and made a difference to the children.
How much families did you help when you brought the food for them?
I don't know exactly how many families that we helped. All I know is that it went really quick, and we had about 80 cases of water. And water is a huge issue on the reserve, because they were telling me that they have mercury in the water, so it's poisoning their fish. And for the time that I was there, this is going to sound a little gross, but I ended up with mild diarrhea, and that is because the water out of the tap is contaminated. So the residents have to go to the water treatment facility, and they fill up these great big plastic containers from water from there. And so what I did was I didn't shower for like 4 days because I was told I could only have a shower for 3 minutes and no longer, because a shower longer than that will make you sick because of the contamination. So what I did was I used bottled water, not bottled water, the water from the water treatment plants, and I boiled that to make my tea. And just from drinking the boiled water for my tea, I ended up with mild diarrhea for the time I was there. When I left Attawapiskat, I didn't have an upset tummy anymore. So if you can just imagine living on a reserve where this is all that you have to drink. So.
What was your favorite food in Attawapiskat?
Well, I had the privilege of being invited to a memorial. One of the elders had died the year before. And so I was invited to the memorial. And one of the things I loved about Attawapiskat is their sense of community and their sense of family. And so the community came out, and everybody, it was a potluck. And so everybody bought, a dish, and someone bought caribou ribs. So I tried the caribou rib, and it was that big. And it was pretty good. So that was my favorite.
How did you know that Attawapiskat needed help?
I learned the same way that I think the rest of the community learned, and that was through the high suicide rate of the children. And I was upset with that, and I wanted to know why. And so I started to research, and I was moved by the struggles that reserves have, and I wanted to make a difference.
How did you get the idea of the shoebox drive?
I'd heard about, I wasn't sure how I was going to help, and then when I started looking on the internet about different fundraisers that people were holding for like other events, I came across Shoebox, which I thought was really great because regardless of your social circumstances, everyone can fill a shoebox. And so that's how I came up with it. And so it was a great success. And it's thanks to you guys, 70 boxes. We did pretty good.
Why do you enjoy helping people?
There is something about helping people that satisfies your spirit. Given the challenges that we all have in our everyday life, when you think of others, there is there's a reward in a way, because you're making a difference in a person's life.
Did you learn anything new about First Nations while you were in Attawapiskat?
I did. I learned a lot for the short time I was there. One being the poor housing conditions, the exorbitant food prices, the effects of residential schools on the community, and the impact it's had on the generations following those experiences. But one of the things that I took the most away from there was a sense of community. and the sense of family, and their deep love for the land and for the children. So, so whether that child was yours or not, the whole community was responsible for that child. And so if something happens to that child, it's not just the parents that it affects the whole community. And that was very moving to me.
What can you say about First Nation stereotypes?
I think that we have a lot to learn, because we are very quick to point fingers and make judgment. And so when we see the poor housing conditions on the reserve, when we see the high cost of living, when we see the struggles that First Nations have, we don't ask, why is that? And if we were to ask why do they have these problems, we don't have them, so it has to be them. And it's not. And it's, part of the problem is residential schools. Part of the problem is how we and our government have treated them. We have not been truthful with them. We have, we have had them sign agreements that we changed. So we told them one thing, and then on paper, we got them to sign something else. Because when these land treaties were being made, the Indigenous community didn't know how to read English, didn't know how to write English, and one of the strong characteristics of First Nations is that, when they say something, that's how they feel, and they're truthful. Europeans came along, and we told them one thing, we did something else, got them to sign the treaty believing that that is what they were signing, and then we moved them off of their land and put them on reserves. And so because of hundreds of years of oppression that we Canadians have done to these people, when you see a Native American on the street corner, for whatever reason, drunk, you have to ask, why is that? And then when you take it to the next step and you start to research what we did to them, it's why not? That's the reason you see the drunk Indian. But we take it at face value. Oh, drunk Indian, can't hold a job. Well, we are the reason for that. So we need to make a change.
Has anyone told you that First Nations should help themselves?
I have heard that, and I've also heard that they're given like millions and millions of dollars, so we shouldn't have to be giving them any money. And again, if if the people that make those comments looked at our history and how we have treated them, and what we have done to them as a people, then they would not be saying those things.
In your opinion, why is there racism against First Nations?
I think racism is a human component, and it's really you have to ask the individual, like, why are they racist? But I think when it comes to First Nations, when Europeans immigrated over here And really, I mean, it's the same in the States. They have this sense of entitlement. And so they viewed the Native American as inferior because they lived in teepees. They lived off the land. They dressed in, buckskin or whatever, type of clothing that they were wearing, versus living in a stone house with servants, nice clothing, eating, European food, and having different values from Europeans. So because of that, we marginalized them. We took their land, we put them on reserves, and we told them that they were nothing. And then with the implementation of the residential schools, that was enforced on the children. And so they came out of residential school back to their community, not knowing who they are, no sense of community, not knowing who their parents were. Their parents at that point were strangers. And then because of their treatment in residential school, set the tone as to how they treated their children, because they were never brought up in a family, and so that just set the tone for a lot of the issues that First Nations have today.
To your knowledge, is Attawapiskat getting better?
That I don't know, but I would like to think so, because there are a lot of, I think there's a movement on now, not just to help Attawapiskat, but to help First Nations in general, because we're starting to realize that there's a lot more going on there than we were ever told about. And so I would like to think, because people are being educated in the challenges that First Nations have, that this is the start of change for the reserves, regardless of where they are within the country.
What do they do with the garbage at Attawapiskat?
I'm not sure, but I would think that they probably have a common dump where they take stuff.
What is your opinion on De Beers operations?
As your children, I will keep it polite. I think that De Beers has done Indigenous people a great misservice, and I don't understand why governments around the world allow them to do what they do. They poison the water, they're poisoning their fish, and they are mistreating the people, and they are getting away with it.
What do you see for the future of Attawapiskat?
I would like to see a bright future for them. I'd like to see that they get the funding that they need for their schools. I would like to see that the teachers that they hire include their culture in their day-to-day classes. I would like to see Attawapiskat embrace their culture, to get back onto the land, to eat their traditional foods, because the food at the northern store is making them sick. So I would like to see that happen.
Would you like to go back to Attawapiskat, and why?
I would love to go back to Attawapiskat, and because because of the strong sense of community and the strong sense of family, and the people were, they would go out of their way to help you, because I locked myself out of the place I was staying at this one night, and so it was like 11 o'clock at night, and it was, of course it's dark there, and then someone came along to ask if I was okay, and then he came back a little while later to make sure that I was okay, and so there was a feeling of being safe there and people caring for you, even though you were a stranger.
Well, these are all the questions that we have for Cathy. Thank you guys for watching this interview. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and stay tuned for the next one.